can think of that has any relation to this situation?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Just so that we're crystal clear about this, her detainment was at least in part because she was taking pictures, right?
Correct.
And it was to stop her from taking pictures, right?
It was to find out why she was taking pictures.
Right, but it was also to stop her from taking those pictures, right?
Correct.
Okay. You also looked through her purse, did you not?
Yes.
In fact, when you emptied out her purse, how high off the desk, or the counter rather, did you lift it before you turned it upside down? Do you know?
I don't recall.
Well, let's say, do you like to treat people's property respectfully or disrespectfully?
Respectfully.
Okay, so for example, if it's your bag, for example, and somebody had to flip it over for some reason, you wouldn't want them to lift it up 3 feet off the counter and then flip it upside down and let everything crash down onto the counter, would you?
No.
So you wouldn't do that to Ms. Berquist, would you?
No.
Okay, so you did not lift up the purse 2 or 3 feet and flip it upside down, did you?
I don't recall.
Is it possible you did?
I remember dumping out the contents, yes.
Right, but I mean, you could dump over contents, and you can dump over contents, right? And depending on how high over the counter you're holding the purse, right?
Okay, I don't recall how high I was holding the purse.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Would it be respectful to people's property to hold the purse 2 feet off the counter and just dump it upside down onto the counter?
No.
Would that be respectful or disrespectful?
Disrespectful.
So you would not do that, right?
No.
Right. Because you don't like to disrespect people's property.
Correct.
Let me ask you this. Is it a crime to put somebody in handcuffs without a lawful basis to do so?
I don't understand the question.
Is it a crime for somebody to put somebody else in handcuffs without a legal basis to do so?
For somebody, are you referring to officers?
Anybody. Does it matter?
Yes.
Okay, what's the difference? Explain your answer. Tell me for an officer and tell me for a non-officer.
Okay. For an officer, if we're detaining somebody, we're going to cuff them for officer security. That's procedure and policy and training.
So even if it's an unlawful detainment, you're saying it's not a crime to do so because they're an officer?
His facial expression shows that Milazzo knows that he has backed himself into a corner.
Are you asking me for this situation?
Let me ask you this. If an officer detains somebody because the person's a woman, is that legal or illegal to do that?
I'm going to, again, uncheck. Calls for speculation.
I would hope he knows the answer to this.
Your answer is detaining them because they're a woman?
Yeah, that's the reason.
No.
Okay. How about because the person's a man?
No.
How about because the person's white?
No.
Very good. How about because the person's black?
No.
We agree. Okay, so let me ask you this. If you see a non-officer put somebody in handcuffs and he says out loud that he's putting the person in handcuffs because she's a woman, would you arrest that person for unlawful imprisonment? Or for some other crime? Assault, perhaps?
It's possible.
Okay. Tell me why you would not. You said it's possible. I'm assuming that means you might not. Tell me why you would not arrest that person.
It would depend on the facts behind it.
Gotcha, okay. All right, now let's say that person is an officer. So the person is an officer and says, this person is taking pictures and I subjectively feel it's suspicious because the person taking pictures is a woman, therefore I am going to put her in handcuffs. Would you arrest that officer for putting her in handcuffs?
No.
Why not? Not even a maybe? Just a no?
No.
In any circumstance, would you arrest an officer for unlawfully putting handcuffs on somebody?
No.
Is it lawful to put handcuffs on somebody unlawfully?
Again, if you're doing it for officer safety, then no.
All right. Why'd you why'd you look through her purse?
We were looking for ID.
And why were you allowed to look for ID? What lawful basis was there to do so?
Well, we had detained her. We wanted to identify her and do our report.
All right, so just so we're very clear about this, what gave you a lawful basis to search her purse was the detainment, right?
Yes.
If the detainment was unlawful, and I'm not saying it was, I'm just saying theoretically, if a detainment's unlawful, the subsequent search is also unlawful, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do you do if somebody says they want to talk to a lawyer and you have them in handcuffs?
We allow them to call a lawyer.
Do you keep asking them questions?
It depends on the case.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Tell me the case in which you would continue to ask questions of somebody in custody after they ask for a lawyer.
If we're doing an investigation, we're going to ask.
I got you. Okay. Do you know which amendment it is that allows people to demand a lawyer? Do you have any idea?
No.
Have you ever read anybody the Miranda rights?
After nearly 25 years on the force, it is impossible to believe that Milazzo had never arrested someone before this.
No.
You've never read anybody their Miranda rights?
No.
Have you ever arrested anybody?
No.
Other than Ms. Berquist?
No.
She's the only person you've ever arrested?
Yes. And that was a detainment.
Right, but you also said that it was an arrest earlier, remember? Do you not remember that?
Okay.
Do you remember or not?
No.
Okay. Well, was it an arrest or a detainment?
We detained her.
Right, and again, just so we're very clear about this, you're making that distinction, but you don't know the difference between the two.
Correct.
Then how do you know it was a detainment and not an arrest?
Because we weren't planning on doing any paperwork or any charging her with any crimes.
Oh, okay, so is that the definition of detainment as opposed to arrest?
We were detaining her for investigation, yes.
Gotcha, okay. And you don't know the Miranda rights?
Not offhand, no.
All right. When you arrest somebody, do you have to advise them that they have the right to remain silent?
Yes.
Do you have to advise them that they have the right to an attorney?
Yes.
Do you have to advise them that if they cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to them?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what if somebody says, yes, I want to talk to an attorney? Do you get to keep asking them questions? Or do you have to call a lawyer for them before you want to ask any more questions?
I don't know.
You don't know? You don't know if you're allowed to keep asking questions of somebody in custody after they ask for a lawyer?
No.
How long have you been employed at Cook County Sheriff's?
27 years.
27 years. I imagine you only became a lieutenant recently?
No.
How long ago did you become a lieutenant?
22 years ago?
You've been a lieutenant for 22 years and you don't know the Miranda rights?
Yes.
Did Miss Berquist ever ask for a lawyer?
I believe she asked if she could call her lawyer.
Yes. And after she did that, did you continue to ask her questions?
I don't recall.
Would it be lawful for you to continue asking her questions after she asked to call her lawyer?
I don't know.
Did you tell Judge Felice that she was recording in the courthouse or outside the courthouse, or you weren't specific?
I don't recall. I don't believe we told her she was inside the courthouse.
Are you sure?
I don't know why we would have.
Well, I don't know either. That's why I'm asking you. Are you 50-50?
I don't recall telling Judge Felice that she was filming inside the building.
All right. When you wanted to advise the court that there was somebody who needed to be held in contempt, you did at some point advise the court that there was somebody who you had to bring in front of them, right?
Yes.
And how did you do that? Phone call, email, text message?
Phone call.
Okay, who did you call?
I called the presiding judge's office.
And who was the presiding judge that day?
He was not in.
Who was the presiding judge that day?
Jagelski.
Jagelski. And he was not in.
He was not in.
So who'd you call after that?
I didn't. I talked to his assistant and was informed to bring her in front of Judge Felice.
Did you talk to Judge Peter Felice's chambers or to Judge Peter Felice at all?
No.
Okay. So how did you advise Judge Peter Felice's chambers that you had somebody you had to bring in front of him?
I didn't.
Who did?
I do not know.
Did you tell somebody to?
No, I was told to bring her in front of Judge Felice.
Okay. What I asked you was, did you tell anybody to tell Judge Peter Felice's chambers that you were bringing somebody his way?
No.
Any idea how Judge Peter Felice knew that you were about to bring somebody up to him?
Milazzo doesn't remember hardly any details of the case, even though it was very short and straightforward.
I'm assuming it went through the presiding judge's office.
You don't know?
I do not know.
I don't want you to assume anything.
I don't know.
Your lawyer probably doesn't either. So you don't know the answer?
No.
When you brought her in front of Judge Peter Felice, you walked into the courtroom and what'd you do? Where'd you take her? Where did you go?
We went up in front of the bench.
We or you?
Well, myself, Ms. Burquest, and Sergeant Larson, I believe.
Didn't Ms. Burquist not go up to the bench? First you went up by yourself, right? Do you not remember?
I don't remember.
So what did Judge Peter Felice, what was the first thing said in court about Amanda's case?
I don't recall.
There's a report which is signed by Lieutenant Don Milazzo. Is that you?
Yes.
It's S018-0002736, right?
Yes.
Bait stamp is CCSAO Burquist 00021 for the record. What did Judge Felice admonish Ms. Burquist about?
As far as I can recall, about videotaping in and around the building, and if he ever caught her again, he would hold her in contempt.
When you see the word in, do you just automatically assume that the word and around is there too? Or is that special for this case?
That is what Judge Felice said.
Okay, I'm going to hand you what's marked as Exhibit 3. That's your report, is it not?
Yes.
Please read out loud your words of what Judge Peter Felice said, which I highlighted.
Okay. Regarding photography in the building and the security issues involved.
And you wrote this.
Yes.
And you wrote this much more recently than now. Now it's 10 months later, right?
I don't understand your question.
When did you write this? Did you write this yesterday or last week, or did you write this in March when this happened?
March 28th.
March 28th, the same day that it happened, right?
Yes.
Okay, so your memory of what happened in front of Judge Peter Felice was probably better in March 28th, 2018 than it is on January 15th, 2019, right?
Yes.
And what you wrote in your report was that Judge Peter Felice admonished her about recording in the building, right?
Yes.
Why would he admonish her about recording in the building and not around the building or outside the building? Any idea?
I don't recall.
Maybe because you told him that she was recording in the building. Is that possible?
No.
Why would you write this then?
Why would I write what he told her?
Why would he admonish her only for recording in the building?
I recall him admonishing her for in and around the building.
You recall that clearly now, sitting here today?
I recalled the judge telling her that she could not videotape in and around the building.
Was this recorded?
It would be probably on the court transcripts.